tell me that.
Nas, is there a truth that can be known?
Yes, I know if I put baking soda and vinegar in the same space, I'll get a certain reaction. That's the truth.
Okay, but I'm talking about in context of there being a creator. Do you think that there's a way to know for sure a truth about a creator in the spiritual realm that we can know about?
Nope. You guys been trying for a long time. You ain't been yet, so.
But if I believe in my thing, that's okay, right?
Yes. Boy, what he's saying is he
Gosh, I'm
see.
listening to Nas.
Well, he wasn't answering, so
Nas, but if I believe in my thing about God, is that cool with you? That's like just my thing, right?
he hung up on you.
You
That
know, well, goodbye, Nas. I
that's
don't know.
his
I'm just
thing.
asking him questions.
Yeah, I know. Well, I think he told you he wasn't interested in God. You know, you
Mm.
hadn't.
I think Nas was contradicting himself. On one hand, he told me it was okay if that's the thing that I want to believe, then that's
You said,
cool.
yeah, of course you can
But
believe
then,
it.
then there was no truth to be told except for what he knows. So I don't know if he was talking about a subjective thing or an objective thing. There's two totally different contradictory statements there. I think he was a little confused about what exactly he believes. I think he just believes what's in front of him.
Exactly what he said. He doesn't believe in God. He says he believes in history books. He believes in the
I
history.
understand he doesn't believe in my God, Felix. You're missing the point. The point is that when I had asked him, is there a way that we can know? See, the problem with subjectivity is it's all open for interpretation. So what he should have said was, yeah, I mean, if you want to believe in your thing, that's fine. It must be true to you. And my
Well,
thing, it's true to me.
I think
But I don't have to believe it.
I think he just wasn't interested in continuing the conversation
Sure.
because,
That happens.
I think he wanted to
That's what
discuss
happens.
politics.
Politics. How about this? Donald Trump is not fit for a president, and he'll probably become the president.
Well, it's kind of frightening. I was listening. Well, I can't help but listen to him because he's on
Who
practically
cares?
every, you know,
With
and
Donald Trump.
I was listening to what he was saying and how he works the crowd, okay? And it's
Mm-hmm.
frightening because Trump has the possibility of being the first dictator that this country ever had because he's the answer for everything. He can cure all the problems, okay? He's the master of the deal. He closes deals. He takes no back talk from anybody, okay? And it's just frightening because he said if they try to take the nomination away from him by the delegate count, which is the way it's usually done, that he can't control his people. And when you watch his speeches and watch the crowd, he really works up the crowd.
Oh yeah, he's good at that. It's like that's what Hitler did.
It's exactly right. That's exactly what I was thinking. Okay? It's very
Yeah,
interesting
but
because
see, this is coming right down to what is right and wrong. See, but in a subjective, just like Nas is very subjective in his thinking. Okay, he just wants to see what's in front of him. Like, but see, without authority, you guys, without there being an authority, what should we care whether or not Donald Trump is the president or not the president? You know what I'm saying? Look, but see, here's the flip side of it. If I use God as the plumb line, you guys know what a plumb line is, right? It's the thing that you use to measure a wall to see if it's straight.
right.
Okay, so if I use God as the plumb line, now things start to make sense. Now I can say, okay, you know what? We really need somebody to have godly values. Donald Trump certainly isn't it. I don't care if he calls himself a Christian or not. He's crazy. He's a chauvinistic pig, and he wouldn't make a very good president. But see, I have a reason to justify why Donald Trump is not a good fit. But if you're somebody like Nas, who cares who's in presidency? In fact, what we should do is just have all-out war. Why not? Let's just get rid of everybody who doesn't look like us. It doesn't think like us. What do we care? Why is our brain care about anything? Why are we bringing, for instance, soldiers to various parts of the world to help others? Why for so many years did we help Israel? Honestly. There are people by themselves, surrounded by their own enemies. They have nothing at all to do with the United States. It's because there are values in the world that must be peacefully kept. And the only reason you can even think that way is if there was one God that gave us the rules and the commands and the way to think. That if you don't have the one God to do that, then everything is up to subjectivity, meaning your opinion is just as valid as the next one's opinion. The only difference, Felix, is whether or not that other brain is strong enough to kill you. That's it. That's all you got if you don't have a God. So, look, we could talk about morals, we could talk about presidency, we could talk about what's right and what's wrong with the universe. But see, if you don't believe in the right God, if you don't know the right God, I would say that you can't justify anything. Who cares what anybody's doing? And that's really the thing I want to get in your guys' heads is you don't want there to be a God, in a Christian God anyway. But the reality is what else should there be, and what else is there? Subjectivity, evolution. If my brain fizzes better than yours, I can off you. Oh well, my brain and my DNA is stronger than yours, I guess. That's not how we live. That's not how you raised your children. That's not how anybody raises their children. Even people that live in the most remotest parts of the world do not live that way. They live their lives, every moment of their lives, in objectivity and absolute, as if rights and wrongs truly exist. Now, the only way that you can have a right and wrong is if there is an all-knowing, powerful mind giving us those rules.
And
That's the God from the Bible.
And that's if you're religious or not. That's if you're Catholic or Muslim or a Indonesian or
correct,
whatever.
Correct.
I mean, everybody basically.
That's where you're stuck. That's where you're stuck, Felix. And I understand. See, the problem now is you got to dive a little deeper. You can't just stop there. Okay, so now we get the general picture. Okay, I get it. You can't really have morals objectively unless there's a God. Well, then the second question is, which God is it? Is it the God of the Muslims? Is it the God of the Jews? Is it the God of the Christians? Right?
But there are more religions than that. And they have morals also. Some people...
That's correct. So, the way that you solve that riddle, because it is a riddle, it's a mystery until you find out what the truth is, you have to decide whose authority you're going to follow. And now you make that list. Okay, the Muslims have the Quran. There are various books written by the Baha'i faith. The Mormons have the Book of Mormon. The Jehovah's Witnesses have the Watchtower magazines. Okay, now you got all these authorities, and you put them in a big pile. You got a big, tall stack of books, including the Bible. Then you examine all of those books, and you ask it a lot of questions. Were the eyewitnesses accurate? Are their prophecies fulfilled? Which of these books has the most accurate of all manuscripts? When you weigh out all of those questions, there's hundreds of questions to ask these books.
But how about if you take the other half of the world who've never seen the Bible?
Well, the way God works is when he chooses. He sends a missionary to those parts of the world, and they have gone into those parts of the world and preached the gospel. Well, what happened when the Jews, like Paul, were the only ones that had the gospel? They're the ones who started the Gentile church. What did the rest of those people do? Guess what, my friend?
Yeah.
They were part of a fallen world who ended up going to hell without a holy God who saved them. Now, some of them did get saved. There were some Gentiles that ended up getting saved because God chose them to be saved. For instance, the woman who came in one of the towns Jesus was in, and there were a bunch of Pharisees around and teachers of the law, and she said, "Jesus, Son of David, save me." And they told her, "Be quiet, woman. You're screaming your head off, right?" And Jesus heard her crying, and he says something about calling her a dog. Okay, he was referring to her as a Gentile dog. And she says, yes, but even dogs have to eat from the scraps that fall from the master's table. And Jesus turned to her and says, "Woman, there has been not a person in this area with such great of a faith than you have." And it must have just floored the Jews that were listening to this. A Gentile woman getting praised by a holy God like Jesus Christ, calling her faith great. Okay, so there were Gentiles who did end up getting saved, but it first went to the Jews. That's what the Bible says over and over again. First to the Jews, then to the Gentiles. And then when Jesus saw opportunity to save in his choosing and his purpose, he would save certain Gentiles. But to answer your question, Felix, yes, people that live in remotest parts of the world who have never heard the gospel will not go to heaven until they've received Christ through the gospel.
They may never even see a white man.
That's irrelevant to God's standards.
Okay,
That's irrelevant. That's completely irrelevant to the way God sees the world. He sees it as a fallen planet. That's what you see there. Okay, the remote tribes. Okay, that is the result of sin falling into the world. Their savagery, their paganism, their human sacrifices, their cannibalism. Okay, that is all the result of Adam and Eve and the fall of humanity. And unfortunately, and it is unfortunate, many of them die and not receive the gospel.
I mean, how much of China is going to receive the gospel?
I don't think
Millions of people.
I think many Chinese people have heard the gospel. In fact, there's a humongous underground church because it's a communist place. They're still very strict with Christian churches. They got one state church that's humongous, but it's controlled by the government because it's still communist. And then they got these independent churches that are Bible-believing churches that are also Christian that are underground. In other words, they're hidden. When they get caught, they end up going to prison. Same thing in North Korea, Japan, and a lot of other places.
Well, Japan, they don't go to jail for having a religion, but the Japanese are basically Buddhists. Is that correct? I'm not sure.
Say it again.
Japanese are believer Buddhists. I don't recall.
No, Shinto.
I don't know, Buddhists. Yeah, I've actually learned a ton about Buddhism, which is Buddhism is actually, if you want to be an atheist and spiritual at the same time, be a Buddhist.
Well,
if you just believe in, you guys are actually technically Buddhist, because I heard Mark say one time, we believe in humanity. And that's exactly what Buddhists believe. They believe in humanity, that men have the capability of reaching a higher level.
Buddhism is more of a way of living your life. You know, how you live.
Living your life in a good way.
Well, but they don't worship
yourself to reach some sort of nirvana.
Nirvana.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's a state of consciousness, though. It's not a heaven. what it is you'll either be reincarnated into an animal